The Trade is brought to you by Vantage Markets, delivering one of Australia's most trusted and award-winning trading experiences. Explore smart trading at vantagemarkets.com.au.
Hello and welcome to The Trade. Before we get into the technicals, let's have a look at what traders are watching out there. And President Trump has issued final tariff notices to 7 minor trading partners. Well, he also says he's close to a deal with its biggest trading partner, the EU. Trump saying he would probably tell the EU within 2 days what rate it could expect for its exports to the US, adding that the 27-nation bloc has become much more cooperative, saying they treated us very badly until recently, and now they're treating us very nicely. It's like a different world, actually. The president also stated on his social media platform that as of August 1st, he would impose a 20% tariff on goods from the Philippines, 30% on goods from Sri Lanka, Algeria, Iraq and Libya, and 25% on Brunei and Moldova. Meanwhile, minutes from the Fed's last meeting noting considerable uncertainty about the impact of tariffs on inflation, with most officials noting that tariffs could have a more persistent impact. Meanwhile, US wholesale inventories for May showed a 0.3% decline during the month, while sales fell by 0.3%. And following a better than expected 10-year note auction, the US 2-year Treasury yield fell to 3.85%, the 10-year down to 4.34%, and the US dollar hovered near a more than 2-week high against the yen. We've also been watching what's been happening with Bitcoin, which hit records overnight and is just retreating from those. It did breach 112,000 US dollars. Let's get into all the technicals now with Nick Twidale from ATFX. Good to see you, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we had the shot from the RBA.
We did, didn't we? Yes.
Let's talk through what the dollar's been doing, the Aussie dollar.
So the Aussie dollar, we got a 50-point very sharp rally on the RBA. I think we were 92 to 95% priced in that we were going to get a cut, and many disappointed households out there. That they came through and held. So I think there's a bit of an issue with the RBA's communication, that they've been kind of resolutely hawkish for most of the year, and then in May they kind of flip-flopped and turned a bit dovish. So the whole market priced in this cut, and we didn't get it. So it rallied from about 64.90 straight up to sort of 65.50ish, and we're now sitting in the middle of this range. But certainly, if we do see the Aussie appreciate further, and I think we'll see it appreciate more on the crosses than against the dollar. I think the dollar's got its own story. We could easily see a break on the crosses, but certainly we're not far from those highs now against the dollar. And if we break through 66, it really does open the way on the longer term to move up to sort of 68, 69 cents.
Whoa, okay, that's great. The RBNZ, meanwhile, they held as well, but that was expected. So
that
what
was
do we see
expected.
with the Kiwi?
Yeah, the Kiwi, I mean, they've put in 225 basis points worth of cuts since last August. So it was about time for them to have a bit of a rest. They're still relatively dovish. So Kiwi's also trading very nicely as well. We've got some good technical levels coming up. Obviously, those highs up around 60.50 are going to be the target on the top side. And we're just sitting on what's quite a steep trend line now, but a break lower, and that will probably come with dollar buying across the board. Could see us down to 59 cents very quickly, and then opens up the way sort of for 58 and 57.
All right, well, we touched there on what's happening with the greenback in particular, but when you're looking at yen momentum, what are you seeing? Because it's coming back a little bit.
It has come back a little bit, yeah. We saw pretty much yen selling literally from July 1, but this week as well, and it's taken us up to sort of 148, but we're back down around 146, under 146. That's from earlier today. We've dipped under 146 today. So there's been some really good yen buying coming across the board, and it's sitting. It feels like we might see a little bit more yen buying. Whether it's haven for there's still debate on what we're going to get as a deal for the US and Japan, and I think there's a bit of concern there in Japan. So it's going to be interesting to see, but it's sitting nicely. The next target on the top is back up towards that sort of that trend line that you can see there, and then we've got 148 as the monthly high. So I think that's the target on the top side. It's interesting times in FX with these tariffs coming through, and here President Trump appears to be picking on the little guys at the moment more than the big guys, which could be telling. I think we're going to see some really interesting moves in the coming weeks.
But, and we've mentioned this before, is his bark sometimes worse than his bite? Because he then does seem to backtrack, and even with what we saw with the relationship with the EU, and he said they're treating us more nicely now. Absolutely,
and you'd love to be a fly on the wall and find out how much nicer they are, and if this is, his famous deal-making process.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it does feel like maybe we get a lighter tariff for the EU than he's threatened. Because they're being nicer.
So what does that mean for the euro then?
Well, I think it gives the euro a bit of strength. The interesting thing we've got as well is we've just seen those Fed meeting minutes. The Fed are concerned with longer term inflation coming through, but then they also see rates coming down in the US by the end of the year as well. So we're still pricing in 1 to 2 rate cuts in the US. So it's going to be I think we're going to see a fair amount of volatility coming through, but euro again in touching distance of those highs. So I think we could see a spike up towards those highs if we get news in the next couple of days of a much lighter tariff than maybe we were thinking of before.
And are the UK being nice too?
Well, the UK, they were the first cab off the rank, weren't they? But cables had a big drop. So when you look at some of the other currencies, we're like a big figure lower than the highs. But as always, cable just does a lot more for us. So we're down under 136. We topped out around 138. I think it's okay. I think it could move to the top side if we see that dollar weaken. UK feels all right, but we had that big dip on tears in Parliament, didn't we?
Yes.
So this seems to have recovered from there. It's going to be data watching for most currencies, most central banks as we move forward. And I think we might start to see these tariff impacts hitting data. And that's when we're going to see some really good new moves in foreign exchange.
All right, always exciting, your little world, or your big world, I should say. Nick, thank you. Nick Twidale there from ATFX. That does it for this edition of The Trade. Be sure to join us next time.
The Trade was brought to you by Vantage Markets, delivering one of Australia's most trusted and award-winning trading experiences. Explore smart trading at vantagemarkets.com.au.